Okay, so it's been years and years and years since I said I wouldn't do review or reaction-based content ever again. For years, I've had to put up with, Alex, have you read the last chapter? Alex, have you read the last chapter? Alex, you know what? F it. Berserk has been so good, it hasn't missed a beat in years. So I really want to go through this chapter, and I'm going to go through future chapters from now on, especially because, as you'll see with my next video, I have a theory and it is actually coming together. But basically, to recap, the last chapter revealed that Skull Knight went through the first ever eclipse. There were all sorts of different god hand creatures or astral creatures. There was a sacrificed woman. And as is remarked in this chapter, Danaan, the current queen of Elfhelm, looks remarkably like her. And that puts things in a really interesting perspective for Skull Knight and Geyseric's identity. We also learn in this chapter, however, that Flora, Shiake's master, who had a very similar role to Skull Knight as Shiake has to Guts, we learn that Flora committed a taboo act of sorcery and was exiled from Elfhelm. Obviously, it's not stated what this action is, but I think it's a fair assumption to make that imparting Geyseric's soul was what sealed the deal and got her exiled. Because when we come to think of it, we don't know the whole process of Guts and the Berserker armor and what that endgame will be. We don't have a clear idea of what that is. We always just assumed that one day he would just be like Skull Knight, and that there was no mediator or process that would even ensure his survival. Skull Knight goes and visits the grave, talks with Danaan, and Danaan speaks with quite close language, only to be retorted by Skull Knight. And it's quite a somber moment. It's quite cold and detached language that he uses. It's hard to look at this chapter and not really go into the contents of what my theory is, but basically we can piece together these past events by looking at Guts' story through past, present, and future. King Geyseric's lover had feelings that were too strong. I wouldn't be surprised if the relationship that Geyseric and this woman had heavily affected the eclipse itself. It would be an echo of time, an echo of causality that Guts and Casca's relationship played a part in Griffith's eclipse. The main thing with causality is this repetition of events, this kind of not exact mirroring, but echoing. We can kind of look back and make that guess based on the fact that Guts and Casca's fate was so heavily intertwined with their relationship. Geyseric was known as a king who unified nations. He unified the entire continent that Berserk takes place on to form Midland. And I think in his conquest of unification, at some point, he came across Elfhelm, where he would meet this woman. Obviously, we know that was his lover. Maybe he tried to make her queen, and maybe something like that was too much for his citizens to handle. But yeah, those are two details that I will go into much more depth on in my theory, and I really want to go forward and just see how much of this actually adds up. Revenge or peace? Based on the language that Guts uses, it would seem as if he isn't going to stay in Elfhelm. Granted, this is on the heels of Casca freaking out about him. But the chapter then ends with the Moonlight Child, who, as we all know, is the soul of Guts and Casca's son, the one who shares a body with Griffith, who disappeared a couple of chapters ago because it's a full moon. They share the same body, and when a full moon presents itself, the Moonlight Child gets his turn. This is actually the first time we've seen just Guts and him together. I really wonder where it's going to go with the next chapter. I think it'll probably just address the future for once, and what Guts wants to do. Because the child itself is the key to where things will go. And that's something that I want to bring up a little bit more and save for my theory video. This chapter was really, really good. It has been really good for a long time, and I just can't sit back and armchair discuss anymore. I really want to get my thoughts out there and make big theory videos like I'm working on. And I want to know what your thoughts are as well. So comment down below what your thoughts are, where you think things are going, how this chapter was for you. Ever since they got to Elfhelm, it has just been amazing. And I give in, okay? Here's my first return to reviewing. I thought this was an amazing chapter because Jar Jar Binks appeared twice. Thanks to my patrons for supporting my channel, subscribe, and yeah, have a wonderful night.